we welcome you on into another episode of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. It's just Mitch Spinell this week here on the show, as Mitch Balla is off doing some other things. He'll be back on next week to cover the latest of what's going on in the sporting world. But for now, you just have me this week. We are here to talk about many other things here going on in the area and beyond. We thank you so much, guys, for listening or watching to this week's episode, the second episode of this week, I should say. So today's episode. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We tell you guys each week where to follow us at BTS Ohio on Twitter, at Big Time Sports Ohio on Facebook and Instagram. If you're watching here on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud to follow us on all of our podcasting platforms. And at Mitch Spinell pretty much everywhere, at Mitchell Balla pretty much everywhere. So we want to get into this topic here just to start off the show. A lot of games coming up here in the first couple of weeks here for high school football, and we are just getting today. A lot of high school golf tournaments are just now starting. Preseason 18-hole golf tournaments are getting underway here between the boys and the girls across many different courses here in Tuscarawas and Stark County. So it's very exciting stuff. Be sure to look out for that on our website, BigTimeSportsOhio.com. We will have articles coming up very soon. In the meantime, we have a number of games coming up here for our local teams. We have here on Friday, August 4th. We have a number of games taking place in the morning and in the afternoon. We will have here coming up on at 10 a.m. Friday, we have Wadsworth taking on Green, the Bulldogs taking on Wadsworth, and at the same time, the Waynedale Golden Bears will be taking on Tuslaw as well. At 6 p.m., we have Alliance taking on Jackson, and then at 6 p.m., it's Malvern going up against Minerva, the Hornets going up against the Lions. On Saturday, the Crimson Tornadoes of Dover High School will be taking on Glen Oak at Walsh University, taking on the Glen Oak squad there. Avante Bird, as you see in that picture right there, one of the top running backs in the area. We just covered him on this other week's episode. Some of the top quarterbacks and running backs in the area. Lake, the Blue Streaks, will be taking on Akron St. Vincent St. Mary at 10 a.m. That same time, Hoover will be taking on Ashland. The Vikings will be back in action. At the same time, at 10 a.m., Fairless will be in Janaden Hutton to take on Indian Valley High School. The Braves coming off a very solid 2022 season. And, of course, Fairless, the co-champions of the Pac-7 last year. 10 a.m., Dalton takes on Manchester at Dalton, while at the same time, New Philadelphia welcomes Northwest into Woody Hayes Quaker Stadium. A very exciting matchup for the Quakers, who are trying to find their footing once again in the OCC. CVCA will take on Marlington, while Sandy Valley will host Meadowbrook around the same time. At 11 a.m., McKinley will be getting a matchup at Brush High School. The Bulldogs will be on the road for that one. Massillon, the Tigers, will be taking on Avon at 11:30. And at noon, Cleveland Heights will be taking on Perry in a very exciting matchup to be. Then on Thursday, August 10th, the following week here, we'll be seeing Canton South taking on Steubenville at 10 a.m., while Malvern takes on Coshocton. Massillon at Moeller at 2 p.m. Then at 5, we have Glen Oak taking on Ursuline. At 6, Lake will play Hudson. At the same time, Cheney will be in Massillon to take on the Perry Panthers. At the same time, Rootstown will take on Manchester in Manchester, and Sandy Valley will be on the road against the Mustangs of Tuslaw. We also have Waynedale taking on Fairless at 6 p.m., Louisville taking on Canfield at 7 p.m., and then Niles will be on the road against the Dukes at 7. Then next Friday, we have Jackson against Hoban at 10 a.m., Minerva against East Canton around the same time, Northwest at Revere at 6 p.m., St. Ignatius at McKinley at 6, Green at New Philadelphia at 7 p.m., and then at 7 p.m. in Strasburg, the Tigers will be taking on St. Thomas Aquinas in what should be a very exciting matchup here. And then, of course, the next week, it's on week 1 of the regular season. We kick it off with Massillon taking on Valdosta from Georgia, one of the top 5 matchups in terms of all-time wins in high school programs. That should be a very exciting game for Nate Moore's squad. And then we'll have a number of other games here upcoming. Be sure to look out for our schedule, though. BigTimeSportsOhio.com. You can find our schedule for our game broadcast. We'll be back for Fairless and Sandy Valley's opener this coming 2 weeks from now, or just about 2 weeks from now, on Thursday, August 17th. Should be a very exciting one there for you guys. So we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go over more stuff that was happening in Canton this week, mainly the Hall of Fame game and what it means for the Cleveland Browns after last night's win over the New York Jets. Stay with us. Hey, Stark County, it's your friends from the local Board of Mental Health and Addiction Recovery, and we have a challenge for you. We're asking you to create a new habit and check in on someone every day. Nothing fancy, just a simple text, phone call, or note on social media to ask someone how they're doing. You don't have to be a professional, you just have to ask and then listen. Are you someone who could use a check-in? Text 4HOPE to 741-741 anytime, day or night, or dial 988. Brought to you by Stark County Mental Health and Addiction Recovery.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like Nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef. No! Level up. Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in the contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
Think Ferris. Where you matter.
You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. All care.
All care, all care. Where you matter.
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partner with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
Happy Sardiversary from AllCare. We're celebrating 25 years with our partners in the community. Here's Mike Galena.
Sarda and AllCare, side by side, both providing a great service to our local community. Where the two connect best is where Sarda is able to get our clients and members to their prescriptions, their health care, all the needs that they have that otherwise they may let go.
Thanks to our community partners as we celebrate Sarda 2-5 at Sarda.
And welcome you back here to the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Mitch Spinell once again with you. I want to talk about the Hall of Fame game with you guys now because last night in Canton was a very interesting one. And I'm not even just talking about the backups that we're having on the highway through I-77, which had to have been really, really difficult for many people, just depending on what was going on and then how people were getting home from all the festivities there. And then you get to something like in the game where the lights go out during the start of the fourth quarter to the point where you don't even know if you're going to be continuing the game from that point. But for the Cleveland Browns' sake, it's thankful that they did because the Browns were able to beat the Jets 21-16 in a very interesting Hall of Fame matchup. And the thing about the Hall of Fame game is we all know these are exhibition games. This is the first essentially run through for NFL teams before the three preseason games for most teams are actually played, 4 for the Browns and Jets this year. And then we will have the start of the regular season in just a couple of weeks. So it really is just kind of all these players getting their feet wet. Most of the stars don't even play in the game. Last night, I think there were about 40 Browns starters who didn't even play in the game. Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, Myles Garrett, and Denzel Ward, of course, among them. But it gave some guys an opportunity to showcase what they could do if they're given a chance in an NFL roster. And one guy that we have to talk about, one guy who might be making his name after one game. I know it's just one game. You don't want to overreact, but there is a statement somewhat being made by fifth round pick for the Browns, Dorian Thompson Robinson, a UCLA quarterback who made very good plays throughout the contest. Last night, he led a 16-play drive, went 93 yards down the field. That included a nice 14-yard pass to Mike Harley, had a 15-yard run at the end by Demetric Felton, who was just able to run through the middle and just cut back right into the end zone. So that gave the Browns some momentum. And it was definitely momentum that they needed because the first half was embarrassing. The first half of the Browns was embarrassing. And I understand these are not the starters that are going to be in the game mostly, but there were some very key issues during the game. The first one being that Cade York still seemingly has some of the same accuracy issues that he did last season, missing a 49-yarder. And it wouldn't have looked so bad if Greg Zuerlein hadn't made 3 consecutive field goals to end the first half, especially that last one when the Browns special teams that had some struggles last season, and you're hoping they can get better under new special teams head coach Bubba Ventrone. It's that's where you're like, okay, what are we doing here? Are we really getting better? And then you have stuff like the Anthony Schwartz fumble during the second quarter, which poor Anthony Schwartz, man, especially with the way Cedric Tillman played last night. He only had 2 catches, but for 35 yards. There were people saying that Cedric Tillman, also a draft pick for the Browns this year, could be a very interesting sort of the wide receiver 3 at this point at the start of the season. Maybe he can even develop himself into a regular receiver for the Browns core with Watson under center and everywhere else. So with that, Kellen Mond didn't play fantastic last night, but he had some points in the game where it's like, okay, maybe we can get some there. He was on part of the drive where John Kelly went into the end zone for the touchdown, but Thompson Robinson was the guy that kind of came in, had some very good numbers, did what he had to do to get the Browns back in that game, had that 22-yard pass to Austin Watkins, who cut back across the middle and went into the end zone, and the Jets just couldn't answer from there. So with that, I'm really curious to see if because we already know that Josh Dobbs has veteran experience as the Browns backup last year. He was the 3rd string back behind Deshaun Watson and Jacoby Brissett, and got some playing time throughout last season before being cut by the team. Had a brief stint as the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans when they were out of options at the end of the season, and unfortunately lost out on a chance at the AFC South title against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I'm happy to see him back, but he might have to look over his shoulder now for a rookie that's incoming and looked pretty sharp compared to what we've seen from other Browns backups in the last few years, and even some Brown starters outside of Watson and some of the other likes. Obviously, another name to look forward to is Demetric Felton. These guys who him and John Kelly could be very serviceable backs behind Nick Chubb, one of the top backs in the league. Felton led both teams at 46 yards on 7 carries. Kelly had 42 yards on 10 carries and caught 4 out of his 5 targets for 27 yards. So that's a guy that, should Nick Chubb go down with an injury, and you definitely hope that's not the case, that could be something that to look forward to. And, there were other things that we kind of took into account during the broadcast on Thursday night. Obviously, the main thing being the stars were not out and about on the field. Deshaun Watson was on the sideline wearing a stocking cap in 80-degree weather, which was interesting at the time. You just kind of assume, that Houston heat, you're more used to it than you are here in Cleveland. And then Aaron Rodgers did not play. Talked to the guys on television for a hefty amount of minutes last night, just kind of about where the team is at this point and what it has been like for him since being traded from Green Bay in the offseason. So it's one game. The Browns have 3 more preseason matchups before they head into the regular season. Obviously, next week they'll be taking on the Commanders of Washington. That'll be the first of 2 consecutive NFC East matchups before they play the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning NFC champions. And then they got to go play the reigning AFC champions and Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs for the last of their preseason games. And then, of course, we start off the season against the Cincinnati Bengals. Going to be an exciting time to be a Browns fan and an NFL fan because the football is officially back. When we come back, we'll be going over more in the sports world, maybe some more about the Guardians talk. Stay with us.
It's now time for our talk with Dr. Michele Iono, physical therapist and president of Advancing Athletics. So, Doc, with the start of fall sports, a lot of young athletes are getting back to training routines in late summer, early fall. How do they keep themselves safe and healthy, avoiding these types of injuries, and what common injuries have you seen in the past?
The 2 most important things are acclimatization with the weather and, of course, soft tissue injuries. The thing that you can't prepare for is the contact. If we're talking about football in particular, the thing that's most important is that avoidance of soft tissue injuries. That's where kids really get themselves into trouble. Oftentimes that comes from being dehydrated, and especially if we're talking about short-term corrections, short-term issues that we oftentimes see that kids will come see me for rehab in this first, let's say, month, usually when August hits. So amongst the football players, we worry about hamstrings, low backs, and usually just contact injuries, contusions, bruises, quad contusions, things like that. Those are more random, the final one, the contusions, and are just kind of dependent on position. Whereas if you're practicing in a dehydrated state, if you aren't using like a foam roller, massage gun, a lot of that stuff will prevent or at least minimize the muscles' contractibility and the opportunity for those muscles to fire under that demand. And then whenever you include heat on top of that, that also can be pretty challenging.
Obviously, one of the keys this time of year, getting yourself hydrated, keeping drinking fluids. I mean, what are some other practices you think that local athletes can do in order to keep themselves on the field this year and in the best shape possible?
Essentially, Mitch, it's the same thing that coaches tell their kids. That's also what I would recommend. You need to be hydrating before practice, or let's say you practice in the morning and you're done by noon. You need to be hydrating all the way through the rest of the evening. And not just Gatorade either, but one of the pro tips I like is just to put a pinch of salt in your water. The thing that's really important is that there are a lot of fueling alternatives other than Gatorade, Powerade, Body Armor. It's really important to understand that these things are engineered for taste more than they're engineered for optimal fueling. So we like things like Noon, NUUN, Liquid IV. These are much better options that I recommend. And also, eating raw foods, salads, fresh fruit, things like that have a lot of the water in them, you're also going to get supplemental water from that as well. And of course, staying away from things like pop and other kind of drinks like that. And then the final thing that a lot of people don't touch on, Mitch, is that soda or any carbonated beverage, CO2 that makes things bubbly, is actually a bladder irritant. So if you're drinking a lot of sparkling water, of course, pop, things like that, it's actually going to give you the urge to have to go more. Then you can actually even further dehydrate yourself. And on top of that, how good your bowel movements are. And of course, then the color of your urine and your ability to avoid cramps and pulling some of these soft tissue muscles.
All right, Doctor, thank you so much for giving us your time.
Anytime. You're very welcome.
Once again, Dr. Michele Iono, physical therapist and president of Advancing Athletics. Be sure to follow Dr. Iono on Twitter and Instagram at MICHELEIONNO or follow Advancing Athletics on Facebook and Instagram.
Vive Auto Sales, located on West High Avenue in New Philadelphia and Cleveland Avenue in Canton, is a used car dealership committed to getting financing for everyone. We give every customer that walks in our showrooms a prime buying experience, no matter their credit score or financial situation. Current inventory can be viewed at www.wefinancenow.com. Check out our Facebook pages for the most up-to-date information about upcoming events and promotions happening at Vive Auto Sales.
Are you trying to increase your speed, quickness, vertical leap, and agility? If so, NST Sports Performance is for you. NST trains athletes ages 5 through pro. NST designs each program specific to the athlete's needs, goals, and sports. For more, visit nstsports.com. Locations in North Canton and New Philadelphia. It's nstsports.com.
If you're looking for a new or pre-owned car or truck, why not see the Parkway Auto Group? Parkway is a special group of automotive experts with 8 brands to satisfy your needs. Come see the difference at the Parkway Auto Group on Commercial Parkway in Dover. 8 brands and 1 family. It's Parkway Auto Group.
The Furby Electric Supply Company has bright ideas for your home. Save money by converting to energy-efficient electrical products or add ambiance with beautiful lighting features. It begins with a professional consultation and a visit to the Furby Lighting Showroom. Then certified Furby contractors complete your project right and on time. Since 1934, 4 generations have built a reputation of quality and trust, and they offer emergency services too. Just visit Furby.com. That's F-U-R-B-A-Y. The Furby Electric Supply Company.
It takes a lot of practice to have a winning team. Albin Title has over 100 years of combined experience handling real estate, title, and escrow transactions. They serve Tuscarawas, Stark, Carroll, Harrison counties, and more. So choose Albin Title for your next home refinance, sale, or purchase. They'll get it done quickly and professionally. Contact Albin Title at 330-334-5800 or visit their website albintitle.com. Let them put their experience to work for you.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
Fall is in the air and part-time career enhancement courses at Buckeye Career Center are on the horizon. Registration is now open for Introduction to Beekeeping, Basic Small Engine Repair, and Sign Language. These part-time offerings run on Tuesday evenings and begin in November. Let Buckeye Career Center help you learn a new skill or advance your current skill set. Call 330-339-2288 for more information or to reserve your seat in one of these or our other part-time classes.
Hey, welcome you back to the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. A very interesting story that's been developing here over the last couple of days. There was a report from many sources that say now that the demise of the Pac-12, we pretty much knew it was coming once we saw the bombshell report, what was it, about a year ago or so, that USC and UCLA would be bolting from the Pac-12, the Pacific Conference, to join the Big Ten to face off the likes of Iowa and Nebraska and Rutgers and Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State. Just it sounded crazy when you first heard it. But now looks like we're leaning towards a reality where we're going to essentially have three big conferences, and who knows what's going to happen with the two little ones, because Arizona may be the second Pac-12 school to announce its departure for the Big 12 in a week, as Colorado announced last Thursday it would be heading back from the Pac-12 to the Big 12. So the move would reduce the Pac-12 to 8 schools. And, there's been some talk about the Big 10 possibly exploring adding other Pac-12 members such as Oregon and Washington. I've been following Pete Thamel on Twitter over the last few hours, just trying to see what's been going on, the latest in that story there. And some of his updates are saying, with the Pac-12 president meeting at the top of the hour this morning, there's optimism of the league's grants of rights being signed. The key linchpin is Oregon. Heading into the meeting, the school is trending towards not going to the Big Ten. So there might have been some talks of Oregon and Washington there, but it doesn't seem like that is the case as of now. Now, Thamel goes on to say Oregon is expected to stay in the Pac-12, barring an 11th hour change that could have the power to keep the league together, as Arizona has not finalized its deal with the Big 12. About an hour from this recording, sources indicating that the Pac-12 is unlikely to land the plane this morning and get the media rights deal signed on the call today. Multiple variables at play here, including 11th hour Big 10 push for Oregon and Washington. Everything remains fluid. And then one of Thamel's latest reports saying also that there's a Big 10 president's call scheduled for today that wasn't this morning originally. And then he says Washington and Oregon are fully engaged with the Big 10. Things remain fluid, but are trending in that direction. So very interesting to see where the conference landscapes are going to be in time. Obviously, it's not even, next year alone with the television rights, with the Big 10 moving to the SEC and with other places moving to ESPN, it's going to be very interesting to see what these matchups are going to look like here in time. But there's also a number of people I've been seeing online that have been talking about how this sort of realignment has been detrimental to what is we have known college football to be for decades. And it's obvious. A lot of these decisions that are being made, whether it's the television rights deal or to move your conference to another place, it's all based on the almighty dollar. It's all based on what can you make out of your program and how can your program do enough to make you money. With some of these cases, it's essentially going to be Big 10, ACC, barely ACC. If you lose something like Clemson, you're going to be stuck in football. And then the SEC, obviously. So it's essentially Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, maybe Clemson, and then everyone else right now. Where does that leave a lot of the Pac-12 schools? Well, USC and UCLA decided, hey, we're going to try and remain relevant and competitive, playing on a national stage as best as we can, because a lot of those 10 p.m. games in ESPN, people were not staying up to. I do sometimes because I'm a crazy person, but I know not a lot of people were doing that if they're not already living in the respective area. With that, a lot of the smaller schools are getting screwed by this. I saw it was on Reddit CFP's football page today that there was an impassioned Washington State fan who essentially was along the lines of, not being anywhere excited for this season because of the future that it could hold for the Cougars program, which isn't a program that can generate huge amounts of money and that bet on the big Pac-12's TV rights deal about a decade ago, thinking, oh, the money's just going to keep flowing in, and then it didn't. So with that, you got to wonder where it's going to leave a lot of the smaller schools. And these are Power 5 schools that we're talking about that might have to align with like the Mountain West conferences and have to go up against these smaller programs. They wouldn't even taken a sniff of, just even 5, 10, 15 years ago. Where's it going to leave a lot of the smaller conference schools? Where's it going to leave Mid-American Conference programs? Where's that going to lead stuff like we've talked about the Mountain West a little bit, because that's going to probably be the one that's going to have to merge with the Pac-12 schools should they choose to do so. But what's going to happen to a lot of those smaller programs where we don't know what is going to become of their standing in college football? Because there was a novelty to college football back in the day where even about 10 years ago, where a school could make this unbelievable run and claim some sort of argument that they could have a chance for the college football national championship, just like any other big program could. You may not be able to see the likes of a Central Florida making that claim anymore. You may not get to see the likes of a MAC school going undefeated and therefore wiggling its way up the top 25 rankings. You may not be able to see that. So now it's really going to boil down to 30 or 40 considerably major college football programs, especially with the upcoming expansion here for the college football playoff itself. It's going to give more teams an opportunity and a little more parity into what may become of the semifinals and the finals in the college football playoff, where it's not just the same 5 teams every year. But that's still not going to open the door a lot for a lot of these smaller schools that people could really latch onto. People could really latch onto David and Goliath stories in college more than you can in the NFL. I mean, it's always been a given because you've seen a lot of these smaller schools, not just in college football, but any college sports, come out of nowhere and win the hearts of people. Look what we do in college basketball with March Madness. However, these Florida Gulf Coasts and these Butlers and these all these other programs are able to just find ways to beat all these blue blood programs. And now college football is kind of taking away that opportunity. And look, as someone who was rooted for Ohio State pretty much their whole life, it doesn't really affect me in the slightest. But as a proud graduate of Kent State University, that's where it gets a little sticky. And I'm sure for other people who are going to have who are alum of certain schools or fans of certain schools that won't get to have these opportunities once again, that's where it's going to get tricky. That's where it's going to get unfortunate for them. And the best thing you can do is just try to hope that your program can build itself up enough to where it can routinely win and not struggle to win, and therefore not have to be put in these particular positions that are extremely unfortunate for some and extremely profitable for others. When we come back, we'll go over more topics here in the upcoming sports landscape. Stay with us. Have you checked in on someone yet today? This is your reminder, a simple text, call, or message. You don't have to be a professional to check in. You just have to ask and listen. Are you someone who could use a check-in? Dial 988 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a message from Stark County Mental Health and Addiction Recovery.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like Nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef. No! Level up. Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
Think Ferris. Where you matter.
You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. Alt Care.
Alt Care, Alt care. Where you matter.
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partner with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
Happy Startiversary from iCan Housing. We're celebrating 25 years with our partners in the community. Here's Keith Bialotta and Deanna Stokes-Ellis.
SARTA is important to the workforce development team at iCan Housing, not only to get those individuals coming from homelessness to getting them back into the workforce, but also
to stabilize their housing, to assist with childcare, and utilize community resources.
Thanks to our community partners as we celebrate SARTA 2.5 at SARTA.
You need to remodel your bath? You need JR Bath Company. Trust in the quality of JR Bath. It's fast, it's safe, and it's affordable. Call today at 1-800-664-2284 or go to jrbath.com. And we welcome you back to the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Final segment here, in which I want to talk about something that's it's something where I don't want to say I told you so, but at the same time, I think we kind of all knew where it was going once we first heard the news. We first heard the news of the Los Angeles Angels saying that they were not going to be dealing Shohei Ohtani before the league trade deadline. That was reported a few weeks ago, and it was decided that the Angels are going to make this push. Only a couple games out of the AL wildcard spot, a very competitive AL wildcard spot right now, not just within the likes of their own division in terms of teams like Houston or Seattle, but also especially alone in the AL East when you have like 4 or 5 teams that could even make a case for a run right now, except for the Yankees, who are probably out of it at this point. Shohei Ohtani right now is obviously the overall best player in Major League Baseball. He might be the best player in baseball in the last 10 years. Some would say he's the best of all time. I'm still reserving judgment for that until a full career is finished. Leave it be. That being said, Ohtani hit his 40th home run of the season last night after being cut short in his start by a finger cramp. He couldn't extend his right middle finger. So he still recorded 600 strikeouts that night, hit his league-leading 40th home run on the season, and the Angels, like the meme that's been circling around in the last couple of year or two now since we've kind of first caught wind of this. The Angels lost 5-3 on a grand slam by Mariners outfielder Cade Marlowe, who had 1 career home run before that at bat. So that's where, look, Ohtani's never going to come out and say, you know, oh, I hate being on this team. I'm done with being on this team. I'm not coming back to this team. He's never going to say that, even whether or not he means it. But it's one of those cases where I'm thinking, okay, the Angels tried to make this push, and I admire them for that. I admire them for that because they want to show Ohtani that they care. They want to show Ohtani that they think they can still compete, and they want to show him enough to where if he chooses to resign with them in the offseason, I don't think they will. But if he chooses to do so, there's a reason for it. That being said, I think the Angels made a massive mistake not trading him at the deadline and trying to get what would have been a very, very good prospect package. Now, there were some reports saying that the prospects that teams are willing to give up were not even really ranking that highly to begin with, maybe not even in the top 100 range, which would be absurd considering that Ohtani is probably the best 2-month rental you could have ever gotten in this century. A guy who can provide you starting innings, a guy who can provide you power, a guy who can provide you contact is such an intriguing player that you honestly could have made a case to throw everything except for 1 cow and a couple of chickens left at this guy. And no team was apparently to certain reports, or the Angels weren't willing to make this sort of deal. No deal was made to mortgage such a future for the now in Ohtani. And I don't know. I think the Angels could have made a move should they have had one on the table, but I don't know if they're going to make a run towards these playoffs. I think Seattle's getting better at the right time. I think Houston might be the most dangerous team in the American League at this point. Baltimore's still doing something special. Tampa Bay still doing something. Toronto's still making a bit of a move. Minnesota's probably going to be the one that's going to be representing the Central, and that's just in the American League. So I don't know. I'm curious as to what's going to happen in this upcoming final couple of weeks of the season. And then, of course, we go to the offseason where essentially for this free agent market, it's Ohtani, and then there's everybody else when it comes to pitchers. We want to thank you guys for joining us on the Big Time Sports Podcast show. Obviously, all the socials that I mentioned at the top of the show, be sure to check that one out. And since Mitch is not here, I'm going to give you guys a fact of the day because, that's what we do here at the end of each show. McDonald's, for those of you who are a little older than me, you might remember this back in the day. McDonald's served spaghetti on its menu at one point, and they still serve the dish at locations in the Philippines. So if you're ever on a visit to the Philippines, you're curious about trying some Italian food served at one of the most American restaurants in the world, you have that option. Thank you so much for listening or watching the Big Time Sports Podcast show.